The Washington football team is a franchise in the NFL established in 1932. In 2020, they changed their name and branding from the Redskins to the Washington football team. There have been many suggestions for Washington to change their name prior to 2020, and team owner Dan Snyder has stated he will never change the team name. But that year saw many corporate sponsors like FedEx, who also have the naming rights to Washington Stadium, and Nike threaten to cease association with Washington if they did not change their name. These corporate actions came about during many racial protests from the general public. Multiple studies have been conducted on the issue of the Redskins name and how many Native Americans find the term offensive. Most of these studies have been conducted by Native Americans directly or areas with very high Native American populations. The results of the Washington Post study found that roughly 73% of the Native Americans interviewed did not find the term Redskins disrespectful, and 90% were not bothered by the team's use of the name. It is also reported that 78% of respondents agreed that the debate on the issue was not too or not at all important. This study was not without its issues. Just over 50% of the interviewees were over the age of 50, which could possibly indicate a sample that is not too accurate. This is especially so when looking at data from the 2012 U.S. Census, which shows that Native Americans are on average younger than the rest of the population. Another potential issue is that the questions about the Washington Redskins could have been misinterpreted. It was phrased as follows: the professional football team in Washington calls itself the Washington Redskins. As a Native American, do you find the name offensive, or does it bother you? Some critics argued that it may have been interpreted that the surveyors were asking if the term Native Americans was offensive. This survey could be deemed incredibly influential because it influenced the decision of the owner of the Washington Redskins, Dan Snyder, on whether or not to change the team name, and painted the picture that the Native Americans had no issue with the Redskins name. Washington changing their name to the football team was met with much derision about how generic the name is. The name football team was supposed to be a placeholder until Washington got the legal rights to the name and branding of the team names they were considering. But still in 2021, they're still the Washington football team. So we'll have to see when they actually do change the name or if they change the team name going forward. In addition to the name change, the Washington football team also had a new policy in their stadium that did not allow fans to wear Native American headdress and face paint while in their home stadium. This was a tradition for fans of the Washington Redskins, but was no longer allowed for the Washington football team. The new policy, along with the new name, came with many mixed reactions. While some were excited and looking forward to the new season, others were still stuck on the Native American costume and paint preference, which unfortunately was no longer allowed. For a more in-depth look on the rhetorical analysis, a link will be provided for the aforementioned presentation, along with the sources. Thank you for watching.